Hey everybody, this video is long overdue, and before we get into today's video, I have sad news to share. My friend Greg Javer passed away. If you've been with me from the beginning, you'll remember him from early episodes of Sin and Sci-fi in the 60s, the France Books universe. While he might not have appeared in the later part of this series, his research was always there, and it continues to color the current project. He sort of gaffiated for a number of reasons. He had a lot of plates spinning at once, and as far as France Books went, when we weren't finding Ed Wood there, I think his interest began to wane. But I'm going to go ahead and put all those old episodes up here for you all to see, as well as some episodes that I was on of his podcast, which was the Ed Wood Summit podcast. And throughout this video, I'll kind of highlight some of the things that he had discovered as one of the authors of this book was also at France. So on with the show. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Twilight Girls, penned by Judson Grey. We'll get into that pseudonym shortly. This book concerns a rocket scientist named Paul Lafarge who in his spare time counsels juvenile delinquents who one day tell Paul his fiancée is a lesbian. When Paul goes home to talk to her about this, he finds her dead. He then finds an entire cult of lesbians, yes, a cult, wants him dead too. Ramble House reprints this one as Twilight Sex, doubled with Sex Institution, with which I'm unfamiliar. So you can read the rest for yourself at a reasonable price. There's a link in the description. Psst, I paid 3 times that for the real McCoy. While reading, look out for minor characters named loosely after such figures as Lon Chaney Jr. and author Robert Bloch. Note also a young radio reporter and 2 appearances of, yes, a superhero. So, who wrote this thing? Judson Grey was one part James Judson Harmon, who you may recall from my video about the man who made Maniacs. I'll link you to that video in the description in case you haven't seen it. Harmon had been writing sci-fi in the pulp since 1954. Greg is the one who taught me how to find such works via the Internet Archive. Greg even found his professional work in our work, and his colleagues didn't believe him. I think I recently found Harmon writing for men's magazines as early as 1955, more to come on that, namely ones by epic book publisher David Zettner's Art Enterprises Incorporated. If Greg was still with us, he'd want to let you know that he learned from John Harrison's Hip Pocket Sleaze, yup, that was predicted in 1970, that Harmon was friendly with Ed Wood of Plan 9 from Outer Space fame. They were introduced by John Andrews, the Wolfman from Orgy of the Dead. Harmon and Wood traded cowboy actor headshots. Okay, who's the other half of Judson Grey? Ron Haydock was a disciple of Gene Vincent. In the late 1950s in Chicago, his band Ron Haydock and the Boppers cut 99 Chicks with Bebop Gene on the flip side. Gene being his girl whom he'd soon marry, albeit their marriage was brief. Ron came out west to be a movie star. Like Jim, he liked classic horror movies and comic books, and when they met at Last Fast, headed by Forrest J. Ackerman, the 2 Midwesterners hit it off. While Jim was writing his first novels at Epic Books, Ron was writing fanzines and editing the Graveyard Examiner newsletter for Forey's Famous Monsters of Filmland. Soon, Jim and Ron collaborated on 2 books at Epic, the first being Twilight Girls. The 2 ticked off their friend and literary agent Forey when they went out on their own with Robert Bloch to edit the short-lived rip-off Fantastic Monsters of the Films. Soon, Jim was plotting books for Ron to write on his own. For example, Lust for Lace at Rapture in 1963. The pseudonym on that is Jeff King. And soon thereafter, Ron started penning things on his own. He used a variety of pseudonyms, such as Vin Saxons for Sexerinos and Whisper of Silk, both for PEC in 1966. But the duo would write one more book together, Ape Rape, Rapture, 1964, which was reprinted as Caged Lust. Ron Haydock is best known, however, for appearing in films directed by Ray Dennis Steckler, Rat Finka Boo Boo, 1966, likely being the most well-known. Ron sang several numbers in the film in the role of Lonnie Lord using the stage name Vin Saxon. Ron and Jim wrote the homage to the Bowery Boys, The Lemon Grove Kids, which was collected with 2 other such short films to form Steckler's feature Lemon Grove Kids Meet the Monsters. In their segment, Jim appeared as Chubby, always seen with a lollipop, and Ron played guitar. Ron continued to act and write in the 70s. He and Jim worked together on another attempt to rip off Forey with the also short-lived Monsters of the Movies published by DC Comics. Ron also contributed to Creepy. But sadly, he passed at age 37 in 1977 in an accident involving a truck while hitchhiking. Well, I don't want to leave you on a sad note. So remember the superhero I mentioned in Twilight Girls? Well, I don't know if he was a stand-in for a more well-known comic book or movie serial character, but I can tell you Steel Mask resurfaced in 2004 in Jim Harmon's short story Steel Mask Meets the Zombie Master, found in the collection Harmon's Galaxy, and afterward explains it originally appeared here a year after Twilight Girls hit the streets. It was voted the #1 story of the year, and look who counted the votes. Oh, in one of Harmon's France books is an homage to Haydock, a character named Don Shepard. Harmon plotted out a book for Haydock to write, Flesh Peddlers for Pike Books, and they used Don Shepard as a pseudonym, and Haydock would continue to use it. I'm curious to find more of this play in their writings. You might recall a character from The Man Who Made Maniacs shouting, "He broke my rock and roll collection by the Ron Haydocky boppers." I've got a lot more to read. See you next time.